the proceedings underway. Can I extend a warm welcome to everybody for the Enterprise and Growth Committee today. We've got a fun-packed and interesting agenda. And Andrew, can I over to you first of all for apologies and substitutions, etc.
Yeah, there were two today. Councillor Dinesh Ashraf is being substituted by Councillor Pettigrew, although I'm not sure she's arrived yet. And Councillor Paul Kelly is being substituted by Councillor McNally.
Welcome all. I could extend a warm welcome to Agnes McGowan, who I believe is joining the committee for the first time. Agnes, you always gave a positive contribution when I was in my previous life in the Enterprise and Housing Committee, and before my good friend Councillor McVeigh took over, and I'm sure you'll continue in that vein. So welcome. And the usual rules of engagement apply. Ask what you like, when you like, and we will be open, transparent and accountable, totally. Now, what I was going to say, declarations of interest. Is there any declarations of interest here?
Yep, Chairman. Declaration of interest, items 4, 7 and 8. Non-pecuniary declaration as Chair of Routes to Work.
Noted, sir.
Chair, can I put a declaration of interest in for items 5 and 9 as a Director of Fusion Assets?
Noted, sir. And can I also declare in behalf of Fusion Assets as I'm the Vice Chair for my sins, which are not too many? Is there any others, colleagues?
Chair, I'm not sure if it is the case I need to declare on it or not, but item 6 has a grant that goes to childcare, and I'm now on the board of Uthio, which has an after-school care. They have applied for a council grant, but I'm not sure if it's the one that's listed in item 6 or not. So I'm just declaring just to be on the safe side.
It's always better to do that, Colin. Thank you for that. Noted. Now, as you can see that we're going to have a presentation at item 2, and I'm going to invite a Elevator to deliver that presentation. Now, on behalf, can I just say a couple of words by way of introduction? It gives me great pleasure to welcome Andrew Burnett and Roz Taylor from Elevator to committee this afternoon. Elevator was appointed to deliver the Lanarkshire Business Gateway service across both council areas from the 1st of March. Andrew is our Managing Director and Roz is our Operations Director. They're going to give us a quick overview of Elevator and the services that they were delivering via the Business Gateway scheme, and to support us in our desire to bring much better times to the communities across North Lanarkshire. I could ask everybody to listen to the presentation intently and strain your enthusiasm to later on to ask questions. Andrew and Roz, could I hand over to you?
Thank you very much, Alan. Hopefully you can all hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, fantastic. So Roz is going to share the presentation with you just now.
Well, she is, except she doesn't have permission to share.
Bear with me a moment, I'll sort that out.
Thank you.
If I can find you in the list. You should have permission now.
I'm afraid I still don't have permission to share.
Looks like we might have a technical problem here, but I think rather than spend any more time, we'll carry on with our delivery if you don't mind, Alan, and we'll just do it without the slideshow presentation.
Andrew, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I'm sure my colleagues will be as well. And I'll leave it up to you to innovate in this absence of the slides. The floor is yours, as I say.
Thank you very much, Alan. And And good afternoon, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to present to you today, and know that we do have a very small slot within what is a busy meeting agenda, so we will be brief, but I do want to provide you with an overview of Elevator and our delivery plans for Lanarkshire. As you mentioned, Alan, I'm very happy to take questions at the end of the presentation. Now, Elevator is Scotland's largest private sector deliverer of business gateway services, working across 3 regions within Scotland. That's Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire, Tayside, and now, of course, Lanarkshire. Importantly, we're a social enterprise, and as such, we seek to reinvest our surpluses back into developing a culture of entrepreneurship within the regions that we operate within. And this can take many different forms, such as working with schools, colleges, and universities to increase awareness of entrepreneurship. We work with existing businesses and community groups to join the dots within the regional entrepreneurial ecosystem. Or we may build infrastructure that provides a clear point of entry to Scotland's wider and very rich enterprise support environment. We have our own dedicated program team with a wide range of responsibilities, ranging from designing these entrepreneurial learning and training experiences for young people to running accelerator programs for the most ambitious of our local entrepreneurs. But whatever activities we're undertaking, Business Gateway does tend never to be too far away from our thoughts. We've looked at how other countries deliver support for businesses, but have yet to find a better example anywhere of public sector funded support. So we're really very proud to be delivering these services on your behalf. Having access to a strong support environment has never been so important for businesses. And even without the impact of COVID, our economy would be dealing with a number of challenges. Brexit, of course, has created some trading uncertainty for businesses with international connections, while our high streets have been under pressure and in general decline for a number of years. We're now seeing many businesses emerge from lockdown restrictions with the need for Business Gateway help to reshape their models. And as we look ahead to what the rest of 2021 has in store for us and the end of the furlough scheme, we're anticipating a large surge in interest within self-employment. Now, over recent years, we've established centres for entrepreneurship in both Aberdeen and Dundee. And these provide a very energised physical space for entrepreneurs to meet in order to be able to access business support, to obtain training, but also to meet with other like-minded individuals. And we're currently developing our conversations with the University of West of Scotland to establish our 3rd Centre for Entrepreneurship, which would be delivered in partnership with the university on the Hamilton campus. And this will provide an accessible point of engagement for students, for faculty, staff, and also for the much wider business base, of course. But having delivered Business Gateway and preceding services to Business Gateway for almost 30 years, we absolutely know the importance of being visible, being accessible, and of shouting about our successes from the rooftops. So in a similar manner to our other 2 regions, we've employed a dedicated Lanarkshire marketing coordinator whose job will be to promote the brand locally, whilst generating exciting and engaging content through both traditional and social media channels. So expect to see many examples of local Lanarkshire success stories appearing at a newsstand near you. We've taken on a great team of advisors and support staff and want to ensure that in addition to providing the advisory and training services, that they're working hard to engage with our communities and the many business groups that exist across the region. But even despite all of this activity, there will still be people in our communities who don't fully realise that fully funded support exists to help them to develop their new business ideas, however big or small. And there will also be many established businesses out there who mistakenly believe that Business Gateway is only for startups. And I'd ask for your help to raise awareness of these services and to encourage any business at any stage to connect with us. I'll now pass over to Ros, who will explain a little bit more about what service delivery looks like across Lanarkshire.
Thank you, Andrew, and it's lovely to meet you all today, and thank you for welcoming us along. A little bit about our team. So we have 11 experienced business advisors who are motivated and engaging with a huge passion for supporting all the businesses in building the Lanarkshire economy. Our 3 support staff are well versed in the business gateway services, and so are really quickly able to articulate what's available within the region at the client's first engagement. It's really important for us to make sure that a client gets something from that first engagement with the business gateway team. One of our newest members of the team is Gregor. Gregor comes with a focus on the community engagements. So he'll work with local schools, colleges, universities, community groups, bid regions, and many more to build the community knowledge of entrepreneurial opportunities that we can offer within those regions. It's also really important for us to tell our amazing Business Gateway story, and ensuring that the benefits of engaging with our team is the responsibility of our new Marketing Coordinations Community Coordinator, Alana. She will work alongside our manager, Fiona, and increase our following and enhance the knowledge and support within the region of the Business Gateway services. Our ecosystem partners are a key part of our success locally. We build our ecosystem to ensure that we have the right people to support our clients at any one point in time. So from the likes of Scotland's Food and Drink, local council specialists, through to individuals who have key specialisms, we work hard to ensure that we have a variety of beneficial touchpoints for our clients to engage with. So our startup support is a key area to get the region back up and running, and supporting the businesses who wish to start within the area is a focus. Each business is allocated their dedicated one-to-one advisor who will support them through this process of starting a business using our tried and tested tools, webinars, and the advisor's own experience, which is essential. Whether a lifestyle business, perhaps working from home or delivering a mobile service, right through to people who are looking to start up a business which has the capacity and desire to significantly scale and become one of Lanarkshire's future large-scale employers, we have an amazing suite of support available. We run specialist surgery sessions covering areas such as HR, VAT, tax, maybe exporting or digital. And the one-to-one support, expert help, and collaborative engagement with our professional partners adds to the support that we can offer to our clients. Existing businesses are just as important as new start businesses in developing the local economy. And whether a business has been trading for 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years, we are here to support. As with our startup businesses, each existing client, whatever the level of engagement they require, will be allocated their own dedicated advisor to support them through their journey. In addition, we run bespoke workshops in areas such as innovation, internationalisation, supply chain management, tendering, and much, much more, as well as offering one-to-one surgery sessions with our expert contractors on similar subjects where information is required more than those which the webinars provide. Key to the growth of businesses within the region is ensuring that they have access to all of the support organisations which are available. And so our ecosystem partners are essential and worked with collaboratively to provide the best service to the client at the right time for the client. So how do businesses get in touch with us? So where will we be located? So initially, we have a premises already secured within the SE Technology Park in East Kilbride. We picked up the keys at the beginning of June, and we're in final negotiations for our second premises within Strathclyde Business Park, which, all being well, we will get the keys for at the beginning of July. In the meantime, all of our team can be reached through our local number and also through a variety of email addresses, which I'll be happy to provide with you after, being as my slides haven't worked. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today, and we'd really welcome the opportunity to answer any questions which you might have. Alan, I think you're still on mute.
out. Thank you. Much obliged. Thank you. Colleagues, you've just heard the elevator. Any comments, questions, observations? Please feel free to ask.
Convener Councillor Damasio is indicating in the chat bar wishes to speak.
Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks very much, folks, Andrew and Rose. Hopefully you do a lot of good work for us here in North Lanarkshire in the coming years. I've just got a few wee questions in relation to the transition. Smooth the transition has been. Potentially for a bit of comfort that it has been a smooth transition, and anybody who's been using Business Gateway either just prior to the changeover or over recent years, that there's been a continuity there. I mean, do your details all remain the same? How many? I'm guessing, but as I say, how many staff moved over? So
Yep.
I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, I seem to be having some connectivity issues here.
I know,
and you've answered the question about the premises in Norwich. Rosing just mentioned potentially Strathclyde Business, when that's likely to be ready or signed off, so that you have a in the north of Lanarkshire, shall we say? Hopefully you caught that all because there was some connectivity issues.
Andrew, can you respond to that? Or Yvonne, do you want to respond to it? Andrew, do you want to go first?
I'm happy to respond first, and Yvonne, maybe you could come in as well. Yeah, thank you for your question, Paul. The transition was obviously very important. We wanted to make sure that we didn't see the service drop. So there was a lot of work undertaken prior to the commencement of the contract with Yvonne and her team to try and prepare us for that. So contact details have changed, premises have changed, staff have moved from one employer to another, and 12 members of staff have tupied over from the previous deliverer of services. So there was a logistical exercise to be undertaken, but I think that the steps that we took have ensured a smooth transition. Obviously, we, from a staffing point of view, we had the opportunity to get to know the staff in advance of the transfer, so that was important. Ros and I were down, it's unusual times, of course, within a COVID environment, but Ros and I were down on day number 1 of the contract to meet our new workforce, and so that we really valued that experience. But we made sure that all of the contact information was available from day 1 of the contract, and so people, when they needed help and support, they were able to find their way to the Business Gateway local pages and find the new contact telephone numbers, and all of that IT infrastructure worked very smoothly. In respect of our physical infrastructure, so we will, as Ros mentioned, still to conclude the agreement on Strathclyde Business Park, but that looks very much like it will happen, and we will be all ready to move in there from the beginning of July. But we're not intending to service the entire North Lanarkshire region from the business park. We intend to have a number of outreach activities, so we will take space on a regular basis within Airdrie, Motherwell, Cumbernauld, and use these as launch pads to make some inroads into some of the more rural parts of North Lanarkshire. I mean, I personally, having looked at some of the startup numbers over the last 3 years, Cumbernauld, with a population of in excess of 50,000 people, we had a comparatively low number of startups over the last 3 years, and so I see a great opportunity there to deliver a much stronger Business Gateway presence within Cumbernauld. Yvonne, I wonder, anything else that you might like to add on the back of that?
Thank you, Andrew. And yes, certainly for ourselves within the council, the transition has been really smooth. And, that goes with thanks both to our previous provider and to Elevator, for working closely with us on the transition. So I think that has been really smooth. And I think certainly in terms of the physical presence, we'll continue to work with Andrew, Roz and the team, to identify locations across North Lanarkshire for outreach services, because that's really, really important to make sure we get to as many communities as possible. But, from our perspective, it's been a really smooth handover and we're looking forward to the next period ahead with delivery.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Paul?
Yes, thank you. Hopefully you heard me okay, because I was having connectivity issues, as I said.
Right, no problem, Paul. I understand. Thank you. Anybody get any other points they want to ask? Andrew, Roz, on behalf of myself and the committee, thank you very much for that. I look forward to productive times ahead, and as the name says, the elevator, I hope you take off, and I'm sure you will, and to a positive destination. Now, you're both welcome to stay on and witness proceedings. If you've got other engagements, again, if you wish to depart, it's entirely up to yourself. Now, we're going to move on to item 3, which you understand, Pam, you'll be taking the lead on.
Thanks, Convener. Yes, this report is the 6-monthly update to committee in terms of the progress with the delivery of the Council's Economic Regeneration Delivery Plan. And the committee will recall that just at the last committee, we the updated action plan for the ERDP. And obviously one of the kind of key themes within the ERDP is our town centre regeneration plans, and how do we support and facilitate and be proactive in terms of the reshaping of our town centres, in terms of the inevitable decline that we've seen in recent years around sort of retail habits and retail use in the town centres, and how we are proactively involved in reshaping our 8 town centres to be vibrant mixed-use centres going forward. So a key sort of part of that, or a key sort of priority within that, is the development of the town visions for each of the 8 town centres. And as we've, I think, stressed at previous meetings, that the town visions are not master plans, they're not delivery plans with a programme to say this will be, exactly when each part of that would be delivered. They're very much about the conversation around, what could the town centres look like, maybe 10, 15 years, 20 years in the future, and then how do we then work towards delivering that. So the town visions or the draft visions, if you recall, were approved at Policy and Strategy in March last year, and obviously despite the challenges posed by the pandemic, the team, along with our consultant Ironside Father, have progressed a range of consultation with a range of stakeholders, using virtual means, obviously, over the period October to April. So there was a lot of activity, a lot of interest from a wide range of stakeholders, both in terms of the private sector, people with ownership interests, the community, and so on. So all of that information is obviously still being fully collated and assessed in terms of what, if any, changes that might result in terms of the town visions, and clearly also links very, very closely to the consultation engagement that was also underway roughly at the same time around the town hubs and the potential locations for the future town hubs, which in many cases are obviously very, very interrelated with what the final town visions might look like. So in effect, that information, as I say, will be analysed, and the intention is to report back to the Policy and Strategy Committee in September with the finalised town visions, and at the same time the location, or the proposed preferred locations for the town hubs and the community hubs. So it would be intended that I think that would probably be part of a composite report to Policy and Strategy. So, but beside the town visions, we're also continuing to progress with a wide range of town centre projects across the town centres that all support the redevelopment of the towns, bringing more housing into town centres, addressing some of the sort of vacant, derelict buildings and sites that are there. And Appendix 1 to the report provides the committee with an update on progress with these projects that are currently underway in the town centres. So I'm happy to take any questions, and David Greer is also here to assist with any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Pam. Colleagues, any questions?
Councillor Brannan McVeigh's indicated she wishes to ask a question.
Heather.
Thank you, Convener. Pamela, I'm sure we can all agree this is a very dynamic and ambitious approach that the Council is undertaking, but it's not without some short-term anxiety for local businesses and organisations who may find themselves in, if you like, the target circle of a potential venue of development within Hub. I'm just wondering what mitigation of that anxiety has been articulated to those local businesses who may be considering investment in their premises but are concerned that it will be for only short-term effect, or indeed for the sustainability of those businesses who are indeed local employers.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that, and as you know, as you've said, in terms of big changes and potentially future structural change in town centres, then that is obviously inevitably going to be concerning for some people and particular businesses who are in those locations at the moment. Obviously, I think we've been trying to be at pains to stress that at the moment these are indicative visions. These are potential options that are being considered, and all factors would need to be taken into account. But in terms of your direct question about what mitigating factors or what mitigation can we do at the moment, we're certainly very keen to speak to any businesses that have got any concerns or issues as a result of the drafts that have been published and the proposals that have been put out for the town hubs as well, and through Yvonne's team as well, through the business team. We're happy to proactively engage with those businesses, particularly, as you say, if any of them have had concerns around plans for expansion, future investment and so on. And we would hope, as we've said, that there would be a bit more clarity after the September Policy and Strategy Committee, where we can then hopefully move forward with a bit more certainty. But in the meantime, we'd be happy to answer any questions those businesses have, and as I say, Yvonne's team also would be happy to engage with those businesses. So I hope that answers your question.
It does to some degree. It's just that when you think about the timescale of when engagement went out on a very specific and detailed play, it wasn't like, do you agree that there should be potential evolution within a town? It was a very precise location. I'm thinking very much about my own locality here, and I don't apologise for that, because we've got local businesses there that are long established with local people who are saying, should I invest in my premise or should I not? And I think it's imperative that the team engage with those employers so that we can make sure that we sustain that local employment at this very challenging time as we're recovering from COVID. And I think there is an element of, if there is that timescale of potential needing to, it could take years to do compulsory purchase and these things. But if that was to be the case, where are the alternative local provisions for business relocation within locality when it is local employers employing local people? So while I'm not expecting an answer to that here, I think this is something that we need to definitely be on the front foot with to support our local employers to stay local.
That's a fair point, and I'm sure Pam and the team will certainly take that on board, and hopefully if there's other things that can be done, we will get them addressed as soon as possible. But it's definitely a valid point. Sorry?
I'm just into the meeting. Substituting for Councillor Danish Ashraf. It just had problems getting in. So just
welcome,
to say,
Nancy. Welcome. I can see your hand. I can see you're alive. I can see you're animated, so to speak. And welcome.
I'm still going after headers.
Right, very good, very well. Yes.
Could I say to that? I remember the meeting that we had, and it was talking about.
Nancy, sorry to interrupt you, but there's a couple of people in front of you. Could I invite them to say their contribution? If you look at the chat bar, you'll see the running order, so to speak, and we'll take it from there. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Very much welcome in the recent consultation. It's stated in the report that as we should all be aware, that the final town visions will come to policy and strategy in September. The analysis, it would appear, from the consultation isn't quite ready, so it's not within. We don't have that analysis as yet. Obviously, there's a little bit of detail, not a huge amount of detail within this report today in terms of the feedback. If the analysis for the consultation's underway, policy till September, basically my question is, could that analysis, the analysis of the feedback, be shared with councillors earlier than September, so that we've got sight of that, either as individuals or even brought back to produced at this committee in August?
Pam, can you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I say that would certainly be was the intention. That, I mean, as you said, we've tried to sort of give a wee bit of a sort of a summary or essence of what the feedback has been so far. But maybe ask David just in terms of what the timescale would be. But I mean, I think we would, if we could get that available, as you say, a sort of summary report, then I wouldn't see that this would be a particular problem with circulating that. But David, I don't know if.
So I think one of the key issues here is that although we're treating them separately right now in terms of the town visions and the town hubs, I think we want to bring these together because they are really interlinked, and getting that interrelationship is really important, because again we're trying to focus where possible the town hubs within town centres so that we're bringing that economic benefit to the town centre. So I don't think there's a problem with given the analysis that's been undertaken on the town visions before September. I'm quite happy we'll be able to share that. I think the actual final report will probably have to go to the policy and strategy in September, because it needs to be interlinked with the town vision. The town hub proposals and the feedback from that, and they're a wee bit behind us right now in terms of when the consultation and so forth was undertaken. So by the time we pull that together, I think even September is really going to be stretched to be able to do that.
Paul, does that answer your question at the moment?
Yeah, and I take that on board in relation to the hub consultation, but site of the town vision once that analysis is complete.
Thanks. Well, you obviously appreciate, Paul, we're on a journey. It's a long journey, and we're just at the start of that journey. But thank you anyway. Agnes, can I ask you?
Thank you, Alan, and thanks very much for your welcome to the committee. I'm delighted to be on the enterprise and growth, and looking forward to working on it. And the very first agenda item, I've spoken about it before. It totally excites me that the town centre regeneration in Motherwell, using the front of old buildings, the YMCA, the town hall, the library. Pleased with Motherwell Station, obviously, and Leslie Street. Every one is a win-win situation, and I'm delighted that they are being refurbished and the facades or the fronts are being kept. Motherwell Library is busy getting done up just now, and I just am looking forward to seeing that. My question is, both the YMCA and Motherwell Town Hall are going to be residential. And I know with new residential properties that there have to be statutory car parking spaces, but both these buildings are in very tight spaces. And I presume that there will be plenty car parking for the residents. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Agnes. David, Pamela, can anyone respond?
Well, I'm happy to, David can come in as well, but just very briefly, in terms of the town centre housing projects, and as you said, these are going to be, council housing projects. So it's unlikely that they will have the level of car parking provision that other developments would have out with the town centres. The point of of town centre housing is hopefully that people won't have to be reliant on their cars as much, and that that there'll be less requirement for car parking, because as you say, realistically there's not the space to put in the level of car parking that we would normally put in on a normal site or a mainstream site. So that said, we also will be looking at what other car parking provision there is in the area, so it's not necessarily always in curtilage car parking within that development. So basically it will depend on the individual development, but the level of car parking provision will not, as I say, will not be the same as it would be on any normal development. David, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
I think once you've got the town visions in place, I mean, I think along with noise, car parking is also a big issue in terms of residential development within town centres. So this is something we're going to have to start looking smarter at. So when you look at the Old Town Hall, for example, there's plenty of public car parking spaces behind that. So how do we make better use of that? Where potentially we have allocated spaces between o'clock at night to 9 o'clock in the morning for residents, for example, and then it becomes public. So again, it's about how we become smarter and how we make better use of our town centre space. So again, this will all be developed as part of the vision, and when we start to develop the strategy for our town centres.
Thank you.
Does that answer your points, Agnes? Right, thank you. Michael.
Thanks, convener. And as you say, convener, especially when it goes to Bank Street and Coatbridge, this definitely has been a journey of 15 years or more for that particular building. And it's absolutely fantastic to see work actually started there now. And I know the main contract or the main building doesn't start till September this year. And then if you move along to the fire damage building in Coatbridge Main Street, again, one of the questions I would ask is, it says here it's ongoing discussions now without being obviously it's particularly sensitive to all parties concerned, and you might not want to divulge. Are we almost over the line with that? As I see, a design team has been appointed, so I'm presuming that we're almost over the line with the negotiations there. And the third question would be, or the second question would be, municipal buildings, the town hall in Coatbridge, mainly for residential use. What would be another part of that? Would that be still a part of that be owned by the council? And it's really good to see it's going to be for the new council house supply. I know when previous, not that long ago, we did with the Carnegie Library in Coatbridge, we passed that on to a housing. Goodness sake, well, you know what I mean, social housing, because they could get more grants than the council apparently at that time. Is there a reason for not doing that this time? I'm glad to see it staying within the council new supply programme. So a wee bit muddled there. Sorry, Pamela, if you could maybe pick up on some of the points, please.
Yeah, I'll answer the bit about municipal buildings. I'll maybe ask David to update you on where things are at with the Main Street. But so in terms of municipal buildings project, this went to, I think, the last Housing and Regeneration Committee in terms of the proposals, slightly amended proposals for the municipal buildings. So it is intended that, as you say, most of it would be converted for new supply, for new residential, also with a small number of new build units as well within the grounds. But it's now proposed that, just because of I think the complexities of conversion, it's proposed to retain what was the former council chambers and the large committee room and the intention is that that would be retained as sort of for council use, so for sort of drop-in facilities for council staff, and that would be linked obviously to the sort of hub and the school next door. So that would, I think, hopefully that gives a good use for that building. So you've still got some access in terms of council offices and council facility, along with the residential division. And I think, yeah, you're right, obviously Carnegie Library was Clyde Valley, and that was a very successful project. But this one, we will obviously be maximising or attempting to get the maximum possible grant that we can get from the Scottish Government for this project, but it will still be quite an expensive project in terms of the cost per unit, and that will be funded from the HRA. So we obviously think that's the best solution for this particular building, and I suppose have to say that is still subject to getting approval through the courts in terms of the common good clause, which applies to that building. So that's still subject to that process, which will be which is progressing at the moment. David, do you want to update on Main Street?
Yep. So in terms of Main Street, we probably own about 80% of it now. So we have bought all the buildings on Academy Street. We bought most of the fire damage sites. We have bought the pub on Church Street, the nightclub on Church Street as well. So there's still 1 or 2 buildings and still 1 or 2 sites. The reason the design team has been brought on now is for 2 reasons. In case we need to go for a compulsory purchase order, we need a design in place to support the justification in case we have to take that forward. But also, if we're looking for demolition as well, again, you know, if we buy something we don't want to keep it ultimately, we want to bring that down quite quickly because we are hit with commercial rates for that. So again, that has to be put because it's in a conservation area. Again, we need a design put in place to take that forward. So the design team's not only brought in there for the ultimate design, it's also there to help us actually progress the development as well. So I would say we're still a wee bit away from this, and I think people probably do have to realise that, you know, the town centre regeneration activity takes a number of years. You know, it just gets caught up in a lot of things. So I think we're eventually getting there, and we will get over the line eventually, but, you know, it will take a wee bit of time.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Nancy, welcome.
Thanks, convener. Just what David was saying there, you know, what they buy back some of these old buildings. Can I ask, I know John Orr's has been stripped just now in Airdrie, South Bridge Street, but there's lots of shops in South Bridge Street, and there's one, to me, it should be demolished permanently there. That was the old pound stretchers. When do you call time in these empty buildings that's been there for years and they're still standing for purchase?
David, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so again, one of the key things here is we're obviously putting the town visions in place. They'll give us a kind of strategy on how we lay out the towns. Arising from that, we will probably look to, you know, zone the towns and area. So one area there might be zoned, for example, South Bridge Street. You know, and within the current town visions, you know, we're looking for conversion for that residential. Again, we've got to be quite careful because there's a lot of commercial sensitivity around, you know, ongoing business and so forth, and we can't be seen to basically be dissolving existing businesses in there. So again, what we'll do is once the town visions have been approved, we'll start to put in an action plan for these zones, and now basically work out how we go about, you know, delivering the town visions. And again, it will not necessarily be a quick and easy solution to this. It will take 10 or 15 years, and, you know, we can't deliver things overnight within our towns because, unfortunately, you know, things come under ownership and things come under long-term leases, and we've got to offer best value, you know, in terms of, you know, when we take forward acquisitions and so forth. But I think you can see from the both divisions and also the work and planned investment in there, that we're going down the right line now. We're not putting those sticking plasters over for what we did before. We're actually taking forward serious town centre reshaping here. So we will get there eventually, and I have to say, Councillor Pettigrew, that is a building that's certainly on the radar.
Nancy, does that answer your points?
That's fine, Alan. I mean, it's just when I see all those buildings in South Bridge Street empty just now, and you're saying that's a prime chance to look at these, target them. And I did mention pound stretchers to you as the first meeting we had. But I would like to see it, because that was always a busy street, South Bridge Street. But thanks, Alan. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Nancy. Sandy.
Thanks, Alan. I certainly would agree with Nancy on the pound stretcher shop. I mean, that's one that really is an eyesore, and probably has been an eyesore in the street for a long time. I think there was a garage in there before, which did blend in quite well, but the pound stretcher shop is done. Can I just touch on the horse shop? I mean, I know that the facade, I mean, Airdrie's got a lot of sort of Victorian architecture still that hasn't been wasted and knocked down and changed and everything else. But the facade of the horse store was obviously part of the heritage of the town. I realised that the building was crumbling and you probably need to take the front of it down. But has some thought been given, because of the fact it's probably in a conservation area, has some thought been given as to the front that will replace it so that it will blend in with the rest of the Victorian type buildings that are round about it in South Bridge Street? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, what we could do, Councillor Watson, is that has got planning permission, so the site, sorry, the plans and the elevations would be available. So I'm happy to circulate those to you or get them sent to you, just so you can see what's proposed. But you're right, obviously the building did have to come down in terms of to be demolished, and any proposals to go in its place were obviously subject to quite a lot of lengthy discussion with the planning service in terms of what was appropriate for the given the context of the conservation area. So I'll get those plans sent to you.
Thanks, Pamela. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Pam. Hello, Nancy. Do you want to ask something else?
Yeah, sorry, it's just to ask Pamela, could I have a copy as well, Pamela?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And the rats won't be coming out.
Thank you. Colleagues, are we happy to accept the recommendations, note the recommendations and move on?
Aye, Alan, can I come in a wee second? Sorry, I did put it in charge on the bar, mate.
Okay, Alan, shoot, the floor's yours.
Yeah, thanks. It's just to make sure I'm not want to be parochial and remain in Airdrie or any.
It's a wonderful place as well.
Absolutely.
A colourful history.
Unfortunately, Coatbridge is only 2 miles in the road, but that's another story. Anyway, it's just to make sure that see the input that we're having from the various town centres. Will this be circulated to the community boards? Thanks.
Pam, David.
Yeah, I mean that's the intention, that there'll be further engagement with the community boards. David, I don't know what the timescale for that was.
So basically, we've already taken the draft visions to the community boards. We've met with them individually, and then we had kind of joint presentations given to them through the Community Matters team. We basically looking to try and set up a town forum via the community boards for each town that we're proposing. So we very much see the visions as being the starting point here, where we're then working with these town forums, from the community boards as part of being able to develop and deliver these visions. Obviously, some parts of it will be commercially sensitive, but we'd hope that they'd be able to drive it forward. And then ultimately, the town visions, as Pam had kind of said right at the start, these are not, you know, a planning permission. You know, these are basically just the kind of overriding concept design of what we're looking to take forward. Ultimately, everything still falls under, you know, the planning process, and you know, through the neighbourhood notification and you know, all the different consultation that goes on as part of that.
Thanks, convener. Thanks.
Right, thank you. Colleagues, are we happy to conclude this item and move on?
Yes.
I take that as yes, thank you. Item 4. Now, essentially it's here for noting, but Paul will take you through, Paul Kane will take you through the salient points. Paul.
Okay, thanks, convener. Good afternoon, everyone. So this report in item 4 gives you an overview of the employability programmes and services that are being delivered as part of the economic recovery plan to try and meet the challenge of COVID. Just very briefly, it kind of covers 3 sections. First section, in terms of the background, outlines the scale of the challenge, which you'll all be familiar with. You know, rising unemployment last year, reduction in the number of vacancies. Most of the people that are predominantly those who were affected by the employment issues created by COVID were those in the lowest paid, least secure employment, often women, across North Lanarkshire and Scotland. So that outlines the scale of the challenge. 2.1.1 to 2.1.2 details the various programmes that we've got up and running from our big EU funded programme, which deals with everyone, to more specialist programmes, including one specifically for young people, the Young Persons Guarantee, and one that specifically targets those who are either facing redundancy or recently been made redundant. Section 2.21, I would draw to your attention because it flags up some work that the Scottish Government have asked us to undertake with our local employability partnership. They've asked every local employability partnership across Scotland to do this work, and it's about formalising that local employability partnership a wee bit more and putting in some governance structures to it and making it a bit more robust, and with a view to next financial year the Scottish Government delivering employability funding in a more streamlined way to local areas. So we're currently going through that work, and the reward for us in North Lanarkshire will be that all these various different grants we get at the moment would be rolled into one streamlined tranche of funding that we could agree how we would use it from next year going forward. And that's all I had to deliver on that, convener. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Paul. Colleagues, anybody have any questions? I take it we're happy to conclude this item and move on. Right, thank you. Moving on to item 5.
Sorry, Councillor Damasio just indicated that you wanted to speak.
Paul, just beat the guillotine there. On you go.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, just a couple of points. Obviously, sad, although not unexpected due to COVID-19. You know, the situation we find ourselves in relation to employment. Obvious concern is, you know, hopefully we're coming out the other end now, but the furlough scheme ends in, is it September? So dependent on the situation we find ourselves in, we might find more people are going to be unemployed. Let's deal with that's not the case, obviously. Obviously welcome the extra funding through the Scottish Government from the Young Persons Guarantee and the No One Left Behind. It's vitally important that we're targeting young people and BAME community where, you know, traditionally, for want of a better word, employability, is probably more of an issue, especially in times of downturn, shall we say. So, so yeah, delighted to see that extra funding coming in. In relation to local employability partnership and the change in the governance, with a view to the changes probably coming the next financial year. ask, given there's obviously going to be potentially tens of millions of pounds there, will the proposals that the local employability partnership come up with, will those come back to this committee for approval? Paul, can you add anything to that?
Yes, thanks for your question, Councillor Damasio. I suppose the short answer is yes. The local employability partnership over the next few months has been asked to come up with a proposed action plan about how it would, where locally the partners see their priorities in terms of supporting employability. And I wouldn't imagine those plans for supporting employability would be that much of a surprise to you. You know, they'll be about getting unemployed residents and underemployed residents into work. They'll be about things like
Thank you.
About a kind of, you know, those who've been made redundant, offering them retraining or reskilling people for sectors that are in growth rather than sectors that are shrinking or not going to recover. So the short, I turned my short answer into a long answer, so apologies. But yes, the plans for the local employability partnership would be brought back to committee to look at and consider.
Supplementary, sorry. Would that be is that okay, Alan? Sorry, Chair. So would that apply both to the new governance rules, if you like, that you're proposing and the actual funding? If that makes sense.
In terms of the funding, I don't know what the answer is yet, what the government are going to ask us to do. But any funding that North Lanarkshire Council is going to put its name to and accept in grant form, then should and will be considered by a committee, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Right, thank you. Right, colleagues, I would assume that item's now concluded. Can we move on to item 5? And I believe Pam will be taking the lead there. Pam.
Yep, thanks, convener. So, as I say, there's quite a lot in this report, as the members will have seen as they were reading it. So, don't intend to go through it in great detail. And as I said, David is also here, who's been working on all of these bids and all of this funding. So, he can provide answers to any questions that come up. So, fair to say that obviously the council always pursues and welcomes external funding that helps support and deliver on our regeneration priorities. So, and we're very proactive in pursuing the funding. So the report basically covers a number of funding streams that are available to us. The Vacant and Derelict Land Fund that members will be familiar with, and we report regularly to this committee. So we've had confirmation of the allocation for this new financial year of £1.9 million, and the proposals for that are as outlined in Appendix 2 of the report. The Regeneration Capital Grant Fund, as detailed at section 2.2 in the report, again, this is it's been an annual funding stream, an annual sort of bid round that supports community-led or where there's a lot of community involvement in certain regeneration projects. Those projects have tended to be funded or get higher priority for funding. So again, it's proposed that there's a number of potential submissions going into round 1 that are being worked on at the moment, and that would be specifically around to link to Braidhurst Industrial Estate, the Kirkshaws Neighbourhood Centre, and also a community project in Cairnley Parish Church in Airdrie. And those bids are due in the 17th of June. So again, quite short timescales for that. Other Scottish Government funding, that's a new fund, the Low Carbon Vacant Derelict Land Investment Fund, which in this first round is £5 million, but it's intended to increase that in future rounds. And again, we're looking at two bids that were submitted for that by the deadline in partnership with the Green Action Trust. The other, in terms of section 2.3.5 of the report, we can update committee that the Place Investment Programme, as it's now known, the council's been allocated £2.8 million from that fund, and that's funding, I think that was probably previously known as the Town Centre Fund that we've used to augment our own investment in terms of progressing a number of the town centre projects that we obviously spoke about in the previous report, and that funding is obviously very welcome. So moving on, in terms of these new funds, the UK government funds in section 2.4, which was relatively recently announced, and again with very tight timescales in terms of the bid submissions, the 18th of June. So David has got absolutely no holidays allowed between now and the middle of June. So there's a lot of activity on these areas. The two main funds, or the two funds, the Levelling Up Fund, which is the capital, the bigger fund, the capital fund, £4.8 billion across the UK, with £800 million of that being ring-fenced or earmarked for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. We're entitled to one bid per UK constituency, and the focus on this fund is around transport and connectivity, town centre regeneration and improvements to cultural facilities. The intention is that the funding needs to be spent, or should be spent, by the end of March 2024. So again, quite a short time scale when it comes to major capital projects, as we all know. The first round, as I say, we're working on probably one bid submission with a view to then, I think there's future rounds, possibly maybe only one future round. So we'd be then proposing to work up proposals for the other constituency areas that we have, and bring those back to obviously a future committee. So in the first round, I say our focus will be to develop a bid that would be linked to our Cumbernauld Town Centre proposals. The other fund is the Community Renewal Fund, and that's also links to obviously some of the work that Paul's involved in around employability. And this is a one-year fund. It's a predominantly revenue fund, and this is really a sort of forerunner to the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is going to be replacing what was the European Social Fund. So a lot of our employability projects or programmes that say Paul refers to, and indeed some of the business support, is gets European Social Fund, and as we know, that's going to be replaced, as say, with Shared Prosperity Fund. So this was as a sort of forerunner to that, to develop partnership arrangements, innovation, and so forth around employability, skills development, and business support. We have to go out to invite, obviously, partners, third sector organisations and the like, to come forward with proposals to be delivery partners for this funding. We aim to bid for £3 million in to this fund, and we've issued a call for potential bids to come into the council for assessment by the 24th of May. And they'll have to be shortlisted with a view to putting them forward, or putting our bid forward with a range of delivery partners by the deadline of the 18th of June. So I think that probably hopefully sums up what's in the report. And as I say, David's here also to answer any questions. Thank you.
Alan, you're muted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Michael.
Thanks, convener. Again, a really good report here with a lot of really good news coming into, a good investment coming into North Lanarkshire, and I don't care what government gives us it, we'll take it. Can I hone in a wee bit on Appendix 2 and the Gap Cost Business Interchange with a further £700,000 coming in here for Fusion Assets? Is this not an opportunity to use some of the other funding maybe to maybe bolster and get other investment in here strike while your iron's hot, if you like? Could that be done, Pamela?
David, do you maybe want to answer that in terms of the VDLA?
I think, well, VDLF, we're looking for additional stuff. So again, the Fusion assets, the phase one of this has been really successful. We've basically invested about £1 million through the VDLF, and we've secured in £5 million additional investment from that. The first unit, the 20,000 square foot unit, is now complete. The next two units, totaling 40,000 square foot, is actually started on site now. So we are now seeking funding through the next VDLF programme to basically finish the acquisition of Plod 1 off from Fusion assets, and also do all the full ground remediation works and advanced infrastructure work. So it's coming in through the VDLF. The levelling up fund doesn't really, this isn't one of the priorities for it, so it doesn't really fit with that. And that's the only other kind of fund out there that really gives the kind of scale that'd be required to deliver it. However, I think we would only really be looking where there's market failure, you know, and phase one of this clearly shows that there's not market failure there. So I think Fusion are doing this progressively. You know, phase one done, you know, we've got phase two, phase three probably ready to go within the next year, 2 years. So again, it's really successful, but it will just take time. And again, we don't necessarily want to flood the market, you know, with, you know, all of a sudden, you know, 600,000 square foot of space coming on at the same time. We want to do this progressively. You know, we build a couple of units, we fill those up, and then we move on to the next couple of units.
Okay, thanks for that, David. Thank you.
Michael, to answer your points, yes?
Yes, Chair, thanks.
Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Quite a specific one on page 23, 2.1.5. Fusion Assets spent £30,000 on ground investigation work, and nothing came of it. And the explanation in the section wider potential investment plans for Biocity didn't really cover for me as to why nothing came of the ground investigation investment.
So the whole Biocity, well, I think there's two things in this. So first of all, the ground investigation works actually showed there was extensive undermining on the site, which basically gave the actual site probably a negative value, but obviously nobody going to sell for a negative value. So the actual value of it in terms of buying it from Biocity at the time would have probably been lower than what their expectations would have, you know, wanted. Secondly, the whole Biocity company, you know, England and Scotland, has now been sold to a UK-US investment conglomerate. So rather than, you know, holding this up and then trying to go back into negotiations and so forth, which again would probably cause some issues with the Scottish Government funding, we are now seeking to reallocate the remaining funding from that, which is £670,000, to existing VDLF projects, which would include at Ravenscraig, new community allotments which have been developed at Watson, and also additional works at Gartcosh. So again, we're trying to use that money before we lose that money, in essence.
That answers the question. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Greg?
Thanks, Chair. Just following on for Councillor McPate's comments in relation to Fusion Assets moving into Gartcosh Industrial Estate. I absolutely will make my local ward area, but the key question I would have, because I couldn't really see it in the papers, Chair, was what the community benefit would be in relation to any significant investment coming into that area.
David, can you respond to that?
Well, again, you know, we probably need to work closer with Fusion Assets in terms of actually driving the actual construction community benefits. Again, I think always, you know, the problem with Fusion is it always tends to be relatively small scale works. You know, it tends to be £500,000 or £600,000, you know, delivered at a time. You know, it's one unit and so forth. But you're absolutely right. I think we do need to work closer with Fusion Assets in relation to that. In terms of community benefits itself, obviously, I think overall we're looking to develop probably in the region of about 600,000 square foot industrial space within Pod 1 of that site, which would hopefully be bringing local jobs, as part of that, and I think ultimately that's the goal here, that we create this local infrastructure, and from that arises local opportunity. And I think probably added to that as well, we probably need to make sure that the companies that are going in there are working with our enterprise team and are working with Elevator to make sure that we, and also Paul's team, to make sure that we try and make those best of those opportunities.
Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, thanks very much. But just a point of clarity here. I'm just hoping that it can be sort of reaffirmed. I take it there has been no work in relation to working with these companies and looking at obviously local employability options and things like that.
Well, if we can't give you the answer today, Greg, what we'll do is someone will get back to you in due course. And if you want to speak to me about it offline, you're always welcome.
So just in guard cost right now.
Thank you.
Just in guard cost right now, so there's only actually been one company that's moved in, so it's been a single unit. I think it's DX Logistics, if I can remember right, who also have a location in Bells Hill. So I don't know if they've worked with Business Gateway at all or Elevator, but right now we've basically only had one company that's actually taken up premises.
Alan, do you want to answer your question?
Yes, thanks, convener. It's just in the back of what Greg, Councillor Lennon was saying. Fusion Assets, I'm right in assuming that was a company that was set up in the back of the Boots factory, money that was allocated to the people of Airdrie. Now, could you see Fusion Assets? Where I see they're doing quite a lot of projects in the Gartcosh area and round about. What input is there from elected members and indeed members of the public regarding what projects that these are allocated? Thanks. That they're working on. Thanks.
David?
Yeah, that's fine. So Fusion Assets was set up with the money that in part was derived from Boots, and there was also a council contribution given in relation to land at Drumpellier Business Park, or which is now Drumpellier Business Park. So one of the key things is that they are driven by a board, and that board has basically an array of councillor directors that sit on that, they help drive that forward. I think what's really important for Fusion Assets is that they need to, the way that they operate is they use some grant funding as enabling investment, and they bring on the private sector as part of private public joint venture partnerships. So what's really important for them is that whatever they take forward basically stacks up economically. It's got to be commercially viable. So that kind of commercial requirement basically drives forward where that kind of development can take place. So when you actually look at commercial development right now across North Lanarkshire, the big positive right now, rather than being office, is around the industrial market, which again, had ever increasing, rental rates coming in and ever decreasing vacancy rates. So again, their big drive recently has been around industrial development, which tends to, the requirement for that tends to sit around the motorway junction, in terms of where people are looking for locations. So again, that's a big driver in terms of what we're taking forward. Their main focus has really been about our key business locations. So again, we're looking at Gartcosh, Eurocentral, Chapel Hall, Newhouse Industrial Estate. So again, the key driver here is about making these commercially viable, because again, it is that kind of requirement to be able to draw in the private sector investment.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, kept connectivity issues and missed some of the summary and the input, but it was just obviously welcome all the extra money that's coming in from Scottish Government and elsewhere to the Council. On the levelling up fund, obviously it refers to a bid going in potentially in Cumbernauld. It was just to clarify that stage one. At round two, I couldn't find a date for the round two bids. So first of all, when do the round two bids have to be in? And are we in a good position to ensure that we've got 3 good quality bids in for the other 3 constituencies? And lastly, what might those projects be that are being considered for their constituencies? And lastly, one last, will there be any consultation in relation to public consultation in relation to those potential bids or input with in communication with councillors?
Yeah, so I think David can confirm, but they've not put a date yet out for when the next round. I mean, they've said future rounds, so they haven't even said whether it be one round or another round or several rounds. But I suppose as we've highlighted, the timescale in terms of when the money has to be spent at the moment is quite tight. So I would guess that that we would probably want to go for the next round, because after that, as I say, your time for delivery is very limited. And yeah, I think as I'd said, possibly when you were offline, yeah, the intention is that we would be working up the bids for the other constituency areas, and that we would obviously engage with the the key stakeholders and members, and bring them back, obviously subject to whatever the timescale is that gets announced. But if we assume it might be towards the March time, so that the intention would be to bring them back to a future committee.
To answer your points, Paul?
Yeah, clearly, given what you've just said, the timescale is going to be way prior to our next committee. This committee.
Convener, can I just come into that? I think the other thing as well, whilst we might not go through public consultation, what we are looking to do is focus on already agreed priorities. So again, looking at Cumbernauld, that's focused through stuff that's already been or getting in the process of getting agreed through our town visions. So we already have done that kind of consultation. So although we may not do specific consultation on individual projects, this won't just be taken, our Westfield project. There'll be something they'll have agreed within our strategies, or our policies or our plans. So it does have either council backup for this, or it does have that kind of consultation. And again, the second one, we have identified a potential second one going another round. So we still need to identify another 2 for 2 different wards. We will bring that back to committee. But again, even with the one in Cumbernauld, we have to be commercially sensitive about this. So we might not be able to strictly identify what the projects will be until we, and particularly if it's around something that affects businesses in there. But we will try and be upfront as possible about it.
Well, hopefully that gives you some reassurance, and I'm sure you take note of David's latter comments. Greg?
Chair, thanks very much for indulging me again. It was really picking up on Councillor Beveridge's point here, Chair, and I think another couple of members have probably highlighted this in previous committees. But in relation to fusion assets, would it be possible for that organisation to send out a briefing paper to members just so that we can try and familiarise ourselves with the organisation a bit better? I know my own personal experience of being an elected member for the past 4 years is limited knowledge in fusion assets. then so even that in a wee strategy document or something, Chair. I don't want to bog future agendas by asking for a presentation. So any written update would be perfectly sufficient.
I'm sure we could attend to that. David, I'm sure we could address that. We could give you something which gives you all the salient points and all the information you need. I'll speak to my colleagues about that after the meeting. Colleagues, are we happy to accept the recommendations on page 21? And page 22, I would draw your attention to recommendation 6. I take it silence means agreement.
Agreed.
Right, thank you. Moving on to item 6. Yvonne, could you take us through the salient points, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and good afternoon again, everyone. The report provides an update on the COVID-related business grant support that's been delivered by the Council on behalf of the Scottish Government for the last 12 to 14 months, and also provides an update on the 2 grant funds that the Council is proposing to launch over the coming months to support economic recovery and growth. Section 1 of the report provides background, and I'd highlight section 1.3 of the report, which advises that as at the 29th of April, the Council had provided grant funding of over £86 million to local businesses. And I'd also like to highlight and express my ongoing thanks to all the teams that have helped us deliver those funds. It has been a massive team effort across the Council. Moving on to section 2 of the report, this provides updates on some of the specific key funds that have been delivered by the Council, and these are also summarised in the appendix. In relation to 2.1, the Strategic Framework Business Fund, this closed to new applications on the 22nd of March, and on the 19th of April we made the final payments, which included restart grants for businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure
Yvonne, sorry
sectors.
to interrupt. Convener, Councillor Cameron's made a point of order.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes, it's just that, as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, I wasn't sure if one of the organisations I'm on the board of actually financially benefited from this. And as it is an item for approval, I would ask to be put out of the meeting so that I can't even if we approve such things without publicly stating, everybody saying yes, I would ask to be put out of the meeting so that I am not, registered as voting one way or the other for it, please.
I'll put Councillor Cameron in the lobby and I'll bring him back in after the items are completed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Colin. Yvonne.
Thank you. Section 2.2 of the report highlights the discretionary fund, which was approved at the previous committee in February. The fund closed on the 7th of May, and we've now allocated 5.28 million of that fund, with 400,000 remaining. At the present time, we don't anticipate there being sufficient funding left to provide a top-up fund of £500 to taxi drivers, but we're considering all options and we're still appraising some of the outstanding applications. Moving on to sections 2.7 and 2.9 of the report, these provide information on the funds that we're proposing to take forward to support business growth and recovery. We had hoped to launch these back in late 2020, but when we moved back into the lockdowns, we focused on the grants that were given to us by the Scottish Government. So we're now looking to proceed and finalise the delivery of these funds. The first of these funds is the Back to Business Grant Fund, which will provide up to £2,500 to support specific and immediate business priorities. And the second fund, the Business Recovery and Growth Fund, we're proposing will provide grants up to 20,000 targeted at SMEs with over 20 employees. And these will support strategic and longer term growth and sustainability projects. And I'm happy to take any questions on the funds. Thank you.
Colleagues, does anyone any questions? Are we happy to accept the recommendations contained in page 47? Right, thank you. Moving on. Good. Item 7. Paul, I believe it's you.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. So item 7, this report details the programmes that the Council want to fund Routes to Work to deliver this year, covering some of the programmes mentioned earlier, the EU funded programme, No One Left Behind, Parental Employment Support, Young Persons Guarantee, and the report details the job outcomes and sustainability of the jobs that we would be asking Routes to Work to deliver over the next financial year in return for the funding that we're offering. I suppose one point I would make is that of the £3.9 million that we are planning to fund Routes to Work to the tune of, only 35% of that funding is council funding. The rest we're getting from the EU and from the Scottish Government. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that. Paul, I believe you've got a point you want to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was a wee bit slow as I'm having to use an emergency device because I couldn't get back online. So I was a wee bit slow. I was wanting to come back in on agenda item, is it 6? Just to, firstly put on record the SMP groups and certainly my thanks to the officers involved in obviously distributing and managing the Scottish Government grants. £86 million to it's obviously went out to businesses that might not have been the other side of this. So yeah, I thank the officers and all the staff for all the work they've done there. I had one wee question, as I say.
Paul, can I just stop you there? We've actually moved on from that item.
Paul, as to why
Paul,
the grant for the commission
we've actually concluded that item. If it's something that it's really important, you can speak to me later, and I'll give you an assurance that your point will be addressed.
Okay, I'll put it. I'll send an email. Thanks.
Thank you. Has anyone got any questions about item 7? No, are we happy to accept the recommendations on page 57?
Yes. Come in again there, Alan. Sorry. I just thought I'd shout that time because it would have taken up.
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
I'm not used to this device, so apologies.
Right, fair enough.
So yeah, sorry. I've got the wrong paper in front of me now. So obviously, again, acknowledge so I'm getting my papers all mixed up here, bear with me. So Routes to Work. Obviously, again, acknowledge that all the work that Routes to Work are doing during these challenging times as well. Over the past year, it's obviously been a challenge. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's we're clearly targeting the minority group and groups who bear with me a wee second. Am I speaking to the wrong paper here?
I can hear you, Paul.
I'm totally up to it. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes. Can you hear me? Paul?
I think Councillor Damasio is having connection problems. There's a warning come up on his screen.
I think your observation is spot on, sir.
I'm not sure whether
Paul? Colleagues, in the absence of Paul's contribution at the moment due to technical difficulties, which I'm sure will be restored as soon as possible, does anyone have any points or any questions? No. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to item 8.
Okay, thanks, Convener. Item 8 is a report that comes to your committee every 6 months. It used to go to the Allion External Funding Committee, and it's a report for noting which gives a snapshot of the council arm's length company Routes to Work, and it gives it's basically to reassure the council that the arm's length company is still being governed appropriately and that its finances are in good order. It also, at 2.2, lists some of the highlights for the company in the last in the period reported on, which is the first 3 quarters of 2021. So everything from supporting the council in that initial shielding period last year, which I'm sure everybody remembers vividly, to the work they've been doing with schools in North Lanarkshire. In terms of governance and finance, there were no concerns raised by my finance colleagues as noted in the report. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for that very succinct commentary. Does any colleagues have any points you want to ask about item 8? Happy to accept. Right, moving on to item 9. David.
Thanks, convener. Again, this is a regular 6-monthly update on Fusion Assets, which was formally reported to the ALIO committee, and it's just for noting, and it covers the operational performance over 2021 and for financial performance up to December 2020. Operational performance is shown in Appendix 1. And generally all the targets have been met or surpassed, with the exception of the land acquisition, Vacancy and Rates land acquisition, and that was basically because we couldn't get phase 3 and 4 of Gartcosh over the line in time. It took us to do the ground investigation works for that, but we'd hope to be able to meet that target within the next 6 months. Key points probably to identify within that is the ratio of 6 to 1 in terms of leverage. So that basically means for every pound that the council are putting in, including Vacancy and Rates land fund, we are securing £6 of external investment towards that. Also on the very last table, based upon current completion of the work done by Fusion, is going to give rise to 1,000 gross new jobs with an increase in gross value added of over 1.4%. In terms of financial performance, section 2.2, the net operational cost projection of that is £26,000 lower, and that's due to an increase in anticipated rent. Table 1 shows the current and anticipated surplus of £3.84 million for projected income against expenditure based upon current projects and assets and projected expenditure. 2.2.7 shows the asset against liability ratio, which is 1.81, which basically means that the company right now are in a very healthy financial situation. 2.28 shows that as of December 2020, the company has £2.7 million cash reserves, which again makes it quite stable. Paragraph 2.3 shows the key achievements over the last 2 quarters. I think the first one we've already kind of highlighted here is that the next 2 units at Gartcosh Business Interchange, the works have started under construction, which will provide over 40,000 square foot and £3 million of investment, which is due to be complete before the end of this calendar year. I think the other key thing is we now have an appointment of our project development manager. So again, this addresses a key risk which has been identified for Fusion in terms of it being a one-man band before. It's now a 2-man band. So again, it gives us a wee bit of more solidity behind the company itself. So the recommendations are to note the content of the report and the operational and financial performance.
Thank you, David. Colin, do you have a question, I believe?
Yes, it's a comment and a question. I'm delighted to hear that we now have a second person on Fusion Assets, because I was on the ALIO review committee previously, and that was the main key problem we discovered with the Fusion Assets, and I'm glad to see we've moved forward with that for succession planning. It's just to find out, is there any plans to have further staff on Fusion Assets? Well, having 2 there is great. Having maybe a 3rd or 4th person, if not as a full-time employee, at least somebody that's briefed that can take over in if necessary. I was just looking to find out, I'm not looking for specifics, it's just to find out, is there any further succession planning being done on that?
I think the key issue here is that the company itself doesn't actually receive grant funding from the council. So basically, in terms, apart from the capital investment through VDLF as enabling investment, so basically the company has to pay for itself. So again, in terms of business cases, it needs to have that capacity and the financial capacity to start to deliver, additional posts over and above. So it's now got to that stage where it's taken on that second person. Again, as developments progress, and maybe in future, if they're able to secure grant funding rather than loan funding for actual development, they might be able to generate the income required to grow the personnel. But again, they've really got to be on a financially sustainable position to be able to do so.
Colin, does that answer your point?
It does. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, does anyone else have any comments in this paper? No. Well, I would thank you for your attendance today. That has now concluded business. And Paul Damasio, Paul, if you've got any other points, direct them straight to me and I'll get you an answer to your points. And could I offer my apologies to Lindsay Noble for not welcoming you to the committee earlier? So humble apologies, Lindsay. Hope you have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank you
Chair.
very much.